Before we begin, thank you very much to Arc Neo Masato for joining the Patreon campaign over at patreon.com/TJOmega. It is genuinely why I'm able to keep doing this, so thank you very much. And yeah, I'd really like to review every single episode of Beast Wars if we make it to the 500 milestone. Who knows? Might get there, might not. I'm counting on you guys. We'll see. So for today's video, in doing all the research for past videos and just diving into Transformers history in general for this channel, I just kept coming up on things in G2 that was canceled. And it got me curious as to just how much was canceled. Generation 2 was kind of a doomed toy line from the start. When they released those toys, they did not do well at first because, well, you're releasing 80s toys in the 90s for starters, and you have Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers to compete with at the time, and they were juggernauts. Even Ninja Turtles, even at this stage, they were a few seasons in at that point, they were still the hottest thing there was. People want to blame the garish color schemes, but Ninja Turtles proved that to be wrong. There are a lot of toy lines with garish colors back in the 90s. People want to blame, they want to blame all sorts of things. The fact is, it was just a really bad time. Kids weren't doing robots. Kids weren't interested in robots at the time. So it just died a death, and it died a quick death because it left behind a lot of concepts, prototypes, and unused repaints that we're going to look at right now. And we're starting with the most obvious and most famous, G2 Minosaur G2 Defensor. This was going to be continuing the tradition of combiner repaints in G2. Super garish color schemes. There's the garish of like Bruticus, but at least he has like a camo that unites all of them a little bit. This is just chaos. This is just like a Crayola explosion. I mean, I like them. I do. There's part of me that still hopes these get dragged up and remolded well, not remolded, but like find these molds and re-release this because collectors would eat this up. So only a handful were made, just enough production samples to go around to potential distributors. And the only one that was mass-produced was Breakdown for BotCon. Only about 300 of those exist. But yeah, this is the most famous. These are the holy grails of Transformer collectors. Everyone would love to have one of these. Let's take a look at a whole list of Seekers that were supposed to come out. So this was one we knew as Black Death Starscream because of the Black Death written on the nose cone. It's a hand-painted prototype and not the most thrilling of hand-painted prototypes or concepts because it literally just would have been Starscream in all black with a gold cockpit. And that's basically the only thing about it that we knew for the longest time. Apparently, as new stuff came out, not only did we discover that there was an actual prototype produced of it, we found out that the name was supposed to be Blackout. So it was going to be an all-new Seeker. Completely new, even though it was just a Starscream repaint. Hey, a Starscream repaint. Never heard of that before. We never saw Blackout in this format. It was the 2007 movie that brought the name Blackout to prominence, even though it was floating around in Transformers before then. It was a Micromaster to start with. And then there's this guy. So this was just, again, it's a hand-painted prototype, and you look at how squiggly the lines are and how cartoonish a lot of the detailing is, and you would have shown this to me and go, oh, it's cute, you let your son paint a figure. Okay. I would have said this was absolutely fake. But it was found in a collection full of G2 prototypes, including Protectobots and Stunticons, and it was confirmed to be true by the fact that Hasbro actually made their own out of the Earthrise mold. So I guess, yeah, it's a sloppy repaint, but hey, that's how concepts work sometimes. Just throw paint on it until it looks close. Just get the concept out there so people know what you're thinking. Yeah, so this is another one that we did not get. And right in line with it is this repaint. Again, hand-painted, green and black camo. I actually like the color scheme on this one. Of course I do. It's green. But I will admit, I don't see too many jets going through the jungle. That one confuses me a little bit. And I guess these days we have Acid Storm to kind of cover our green camo jet, criteria. So I don't think we necessarily need this one. We never found out what this one was going to be called. Anyway, we didn't find out this one either. And I will zoom in a little bit. Yeah, this ice blue ramjet in sky camo, which does make a lot more sense for a jet. I don't get the checkerboards on them. That's a little bit odd, but I guess they're just trying to do anything different. This is another one of those that saw hand-painted proto and just never made it beyond that. One more G1 repaint. This, of course, it's not Tire Track. That would come along later. But it is some sort of G2 sideswipe. Again, hand-painted. You can see little traces of red going through the details still, where it was just a normal sideswipe repainted. I mean, it's not the worst color scheme. It is very 90s. It's super bright yellow. I kind of like the fade at the back, the airbrushing. Airbrushing was not too common of a process on a toy back then. So that would have been interesting at the time. And it does kind of give it this, it gives it kind of the look of the water change figures that they were doing back then. But of course, this wouldn't have done that. Again, we have no idea what it was going to be. It was just a mock-up that somebody did at Hasbro. Let's move on to new molds, or at least new for Generation 2. And we're going to start with what would eventually become RID Daytonas. So this race vehicle, I never know what these dome racers are called. They might just be called dome racers for all I know, but I've always loved the look and the style of these vehicles. And I always wish we had a good transformer that just had this as their style of vehicle mode, and it's just that's what they always looked like. Unfortunately, never a thing. I liked it when it came out as Daytonas. Daytonas was actually one of my favorite of the Spy Changers. This very G2 in colors, but I actually don't mind it. Especially because that bright purple that would have been a little bit garish in the robot mode gets hidden away. So that mellows it out a little bit. Here's one that didn't get very far because we don't have any kind of paint apps in the robot parts. A little bit on the windshield, and that's it. This was the Black Viper that eventually became Sideburn in RID. Not much to say about this one. It's just a black Dodge Viper inspired little mini car. Looks fine. Two-tone blue. I'm a Mega Man guy. I dig two-tone blue. Let's get to something a little bit more garish. Let's get more proper G2 up in here. So 911, as we had to call him because it's the only designation on him. Keep in mind, 911 is the emergency number in America. So every region would have to have their own numbers stamped onto this toy, which kind of would have been hilarious. Proper G2 with the purple and the bright green going along with the blue. This thing is hideous. I would not have wanted this one to come out. This one eventually came out again in RID as a spy changer named Prowl 2, which might be the dumbest name for a Transformer I've ever heard in my life. And Prowl 2's name alone created a whole universe hopping fiction around him. I might do a video just on how stupid Prowl 2 turned out. And then this one that became Sideswipe in RID, Goggles. This was going to be called, as we can see on his front bumper, Rumble. This was going to be a G2 version of Rumble. So what you need to know if you weren't looking into G2 toys, what we know more popularly as Spy Changers was actually called GoBots in G2 because Hasbro had just bought the trademarks and the rights to the franchise, so they decided they had to make sure that they secured the name. So they used GoBots as fast as they could. They threw it on a random G2 toy, and then they used it again as a subset of Transformers. Something they would do again to have the younger audience Transformers, pre-rescue hero. So this one is not bad at all. I like the stock car look. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. The colors are fine. I kind of like that the blue is kind of making those goggles so pronounced. It's actually amusing to me. Yeah, I would be perfectly fine with that one being released. And then there's these two that were never made whatsoever. This purple car that we have no idea who it was going to be, and a Jeep that would presumably have been a Hound at some point, I assume, because, yes, obvious. I have no idea. Now, clearly these are injection molded parts and new sculpting. These had to have existed in mold form in some way, shape, or form. The only I have to imagine that these didn't see release in RID simply because they couldn't find the molds. That's the only assumption I can make here. They look fine. Like, the car just looks like a typical car. Just Spy Changers had a ton of them. I like the Jeep. I like the Spy Changers and GoBots that did things differently, because there's so many just normal cars. Because the whole idea behind GoBots was they were supposed to be compatible with Hot Wheel tracks. They had like full through axle wheels, so they rolled really well. So anything that broke like the standard car mold out of this, I liked. So I am kind of annoyed that the Jeep never came out. Moving into something else that looks familiar, but probably not as you remember it. So this became Auto Launcher in Beast Wars 2. And yeah, originally it was going to come out in G2 as this Apc Auto Roller. Blue and white. I like the color scheme. It's surprisingly subdued for Generation 2. I'm actually kind of surprised by that. But yeah, this was apparently the original proto. This was from an ad. I'll give you a closer look. It's from an ad that was promoting the Beast Wars 2 line, but they used a production photo of the original prototype while the actual release was still under production. So, interesting way of actually getting the original G2 concept leaked out. We do the same thing with Auto Jetter, who does have a more G2 color scheme in the deep yellow and kind of olive green going on here. I like the color scheme on this one a lot. I would have been happy to get this one. And Auto Jetter I had. Mine kind of malfunctioned, but a working one, I think I would have been really happy with, because I actually kind of like how crazy ridiculous he gets. He's got more missiles than his missiles are like bigger than his cockpit is. I kind of like the aggression on that figure. Yeah, I'm a fan of this one. But that is not it for the Auto Rollers, because they were actually planning to repaint the two that actually came out. Roadblock and Dirtbag saw release. Their intended repaints of Sergeant Hound and General Optimus Prime did not. It's interesting to me because these are just straight up repaints. There was no effort to make Hound or Optimus Prime look like their namesakes. No new heads, no new nothing, no colors being thrown back. They didn't even make Hound the green one. Figure that one out. It's also the first time I can remember them adding ranks to a name to designate them as different from the previous releases. It's strange to me that they would even go this route, because like, why would you even, like, if you're going to make them so distinct, why would you use Hound and Optimus Prime? I could kind of understand if you're trying to keep a Hound trademark, but you don't need to trademark Optimus Prime. They'd already done, three figures of him in G2, and that's before we got to GoBots and got a fourth out, now that I think about it. So these are just confusing. These are just confusing. Aside from the fact that I'm not sure, I'm sure it's a thing that's possible, but military camo construction vehicles is a little bit weird. Speaking of weird camo, here's a repaint of Hero Megatron that was intended to come out. We got a Siege repaint of this in this color scheme. I'm not thrilled with this one. Like, the green tiger stripe look is just a little bit weird to me. I'm not really a fan of that. And I'm not a fan of, like, the white with the black face, because it looks like a photo negative, which it looks really bizarre. And there's part of me that, like, can't visualize it as Megatron. I feel like this should have been recast or something. Which they weren't above doing back then. Anything they could do to dump a name and keep a trademark back in the 90s, they did it. Now the Hero Optimus Prime repaint, I'm a little bit more in favor of. There's elements, there's parts of this that kind of strike me as like, I get like vibes of Final Battle Optimus from Armada, you know, with like the heavy emphasis on the dark blue and the red faceplate. I don't know if that's what inspired the eventual Armada Prime repaint or not. Weirder things have happened, but I don't mind this one so much. I do like the idea of like Optimus having, you know, a primarily blue color scheme and letting red be the background color instead of the usual other way around. And I think it's more interesting because, yeah, there is such a thing as a blue Optimus Prime repaint. It's called Powered Convoy. So it's probably an unintentional throwback to that as well. I don't mind this one. This one I probably would have been interested in. We're going to talk laser cycles. So apparently to keep Jazz around, they were going to make him into a repaint of Road Rocket. This is proper 90s garish again. White, bright green, bright yellow. Bizarre. Bizarre is the word for it. I kind of want like when we get the Road Rocket remold of Legacy RC, I would love to see like a selects release of Jazz done exactly like this. So then I have my Ninja motorcycle as a G1 character, and then we can float that right into being an animated Prowl retool at some point. my pipe dreams. This is weird. This is just weird. So Road Pig also had a planned re-release, and that was going to be Soundwave. I guess at the very least I could say at least he's blue. So there is a little bit of Soundwave there, and that's about the only Soundwave there is. Keep in mind, there was no Soundwave in G2 because even at the time, they weren't sure kids would even know what a tape player would play with a toy tape player. Or tape recorder, if I'm going to be more precise. So this was about as much as we got. I believe he had a GoBot as well, for the sake of keeping its trademark, but this was the closest we would have gotten. So anytime you complain about one of Soundwave's alt modes in a modern toy line, I want you to remember he was almost a motorcycle with no chest compartment and no minions. Just letting you know. And then we're going to move into the one new tooling, and we've already discussed this in a previous video. It's worth mentioning again. This was an APC that was intentionally designed to house a G.I. Joe figure. Not in the pilot seat, not in the driver's seat or anything. A Transformer would have to be gigantic for that. No, it was going to fit right on top of the cannon. There was a seat that is specifically designed off the side of the cannon for a G.I. Joe figure to pilot. So basically he became a weapons operator. This never saw the light of day. According to Hasbro, they never felt there was a good time to do a Transformer G.I. Joe crossover because anytime Transformers was popular, G.I. Joe wasn't. Anytime G.I. Joe was popular, Transformers wasn't. You know, about the time somewhere in the 90s where Transformers was kind of fading out, that's when Sigma 6 dropped. I think it was around Beast Machines or RID or so. So they kind of flip-flop in popularity. I always thought one would be a great way of keeping the other one alive. Like right now, when G.I. Joe interest for the casual market is like next to none, which is why the toys do so bad at retail, I feel like a Transformer G.I. Joe crossover line would be ideal right now, if only to keep all of those trademarks fresh, you know, because there's so many characters you wouldn't want to lose the names of. They'd have to be really weird little figures. It'd have to be like a weird modern mask line, but you could do it. Let's talk concepts. So this was the Grimlock that was supposed to be redone. I actually really like these colors. Outside of the purple thong, Grimlock in a purple thong is one of the more horrifying thoughts I could ever have in my life. But here we are. I actually really like this color scheme. And I will admit, like, the bronzish colors, the stripes, the blue, like there is a big vibe here of Beast Wars Dinobot. Incidental, I'm sure. because Kenner handled the Beast Wars line, not Hasbro directly, so they wouldn't have overlapped to get inspired by this to make Dinobot. But I do think it's fascinating they hit on a similar color palette, and I actually do like this color palette. I kind of want it'd be stupidly expensive, but I kind of want a Selects Studio Series Grimlock done like this. We move on to Sludge, who is going to be in this super bright orange and blue. He looks fine. I'm not as thrilled with him as I am Grimlock, but yeah, I like the nice hot magma style colors here. Too bad we didn't get it. Like, it's too bad. Like, I don't know if by then the molds for Swoop and Sludge were lost and that's why we never got them, or if, they were just planned to be later, like year 3 generation 2 and never made it to production. Whatever the cause, it's still weird that there's a group of Dinobots that are 2 members short, including one of the original members. And then we have the one I wish was released, because again, green. But I do think Swoop looks super cool in the blue and the green. Again, don't know if the mold was already lost or if it just didn't make it. But whatever reason, I wish this one had happened. Because aside from Swoop being my favorite Dinobot, I love the green palette. I love I love anything that is in green. I love almost anything that is in green. Oh, this thing. This is the most nightmarish robotic watermelon you will ever see in your life. Mirage never had a G2 toy, so this would have been the first time he was ever brought back. Mirage also didn't have a repaint in G1, so this would have been the first time you could have gotten him since 1984. And this is what it was. The most 90s thing I could imagine. Bright pink, bright green. There's an alligator on the side. He's got scaling on his legs. Everything about this is like, please let a 90s child buy me. It's hilarious. It is one of the funnier of the G2 concepts, and probably glad we didn't get this one. Now let's end off on a couple really weird ones. So first off, you see that blurb in the corner? So apparently they were going to give away something called Solarbot. This was a mock-up of the original GoBots card art, and they were going to give away something called Solarbot. We have no idea what Solarbot was. None. We don't see. There's no known existing back side of this that anyone has discovered, so we don't know the details that were going to be on the back side of the card. We have no idea what figure was supposed to be, just that something called Solarbot was going to exist. So let your imagination run wild. And then there's this. So, a lot of times at Hasbro, in order to get your concept across, what you would have to do is paste pieces together from other toys and just say, this is what I want to do in full production. So, apparently someone had the idea of doing a transforming camcorder. And in order to convey what that would look like, they broke, they essentially broke and resanded and sculpted a G2 Megatron, replaced his cannon with what looks like a flashlight, but is supposed to be a camera's viewfinder, and decided, I'm going to do like a transforming camcorder. Now, like I said, this is just a quick mock-up. You can see the purple and green where it's just Megatron painted over. Obviously, if you pay attention to the designs, the actual camcorder doesn't match Megatron himself. So they don't share parts. It doesn't actually transform. It's just so you can convey the idea. And it probably wouldn't have been Megatron if it did get released. It's one of the most bizarre production pieces I've ever seen in any Transformer line. And that's saying something for Generation 2. That's saying a lot for Generation 2. But yeah, that is every G2 toy that I know of that never came out. And it is a very, very large category of toys. When you realize that Machine Wars was an entire toy line that essentially was a follow-up to G2, and this, what I just showed you, could fill out a toy line twice as big as Machine Wars, That's a lot. That's a lot canceled for one toy line. That doesn't even account for all the G2 molds done in Europe that never came over. So, we'll leave it at that. So, thanks for watching yet another weird video. I hope this was informative, because there's a lot of interesting things that never made it to market in Transformers, and there's more that I want to get to soon. But for now, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.